Get on in here.
Serenity surrounds me. A miracle is happening to me.
Miracles happen every day, y'all.
Finally learning what a home can be. Within these walls, I have learned to fly.
Oh, that's lovely.
Take charge of my life and find the peace inside me. Within these walls, we love and work and play, finding joy along the way. And now I want to stay within these walls. Within these walls, my thoughts.
Okay. Take some deep breaths. It's going to get cold where I live. Tonight and tomorrow night. It's going to get cold in West Tennessee. Julie was wanting to plant a bunch of things and she can't because it's going to get cold. Now, my perennials will do pretty good. My peonies, they might not make it, but Robert's going to cover them up for me. He brought our clematis, our beautiful clematis, into the house. But I have other clematis that are just going to have to suffer the consequences. But we're getting prepared for a deep freeze tonight. Deep freeze down in the 20s. That means our peaches are going to be good this year. We don't have a peach tree, but Robert loves his peaches in the summertime. But get on in here. Let's talk about, we talk a lot about preparedness. But I was listening to a pastor this morning on YouTube, and I just loved his voice. I love his voice. I love to listen to him preach. And he's passed on now. But he still has some mighty sermons. And he was having, I think this morning, the sermon I watched, he saw a vision, because he asked God specifically, where am I? Because he was having a sort of a vision, and I've had them. I call, I don't know why we have these things happen to us, but premonition, or I've had a premonition before. I had a premonition that I was going to have a blowout on a tire in my car. It was the first one I ever remember having. And I said, God, I can't. It's for the brand new tires. But I put both hands on the wheel. You know that song, Jesus Take the Wheel? Well, I put both hands on my wheel. Because I was coming down a mountain, and sure enough, my wheel dropped off the side of the road. It got punctured on the wall, inside wall of the tire, and I had a blowout. I heard it. But I was questioning God all along the way. God, they're brand new tires. They can't have a blowout. That's my funny, yeah. But that little premonition that I had, be it from God, it prepared me to have both hands on the wheel and have control of my car, and to be able to pull it back up on the road gently without flipping the car, which could happen. I wasn't driving fast, but I questioned God. God, they're brand new tires. That can't happen. But there are other times you don't get a message, and you have to learn from your mistakes. And that was one of the things I was wanting to talk to you about today. Back last, and I told you all about it. My niece, Brooke, my sister Leanne's daughter, moved to Los Angeles. And a couple of weeks before I had this premonition, she had met somebody at church. And this was like her second time to be at this church. And this man came up to her and said that he had a word of faith for somebody named Marla. And he said, "Do you know who this is?" This was his first time to the church. And I think she said, "I have an aunt named Marla." And he said for me not to worry. This was just before the pandemic hit and we were all shut down. He said, "Don't worry. You're going to be okay. You keep doing what you got to do to take care." And I can find it and get the words exactly the right way. But so Brooke sent me a message and said, "I know this sounds crazy, but this man came up to me." Well, a couple of weeks later, I had the premonition of riots. Lots of riots in LA, Los Angeles. And I called her and told her, I said, "Brooke, I've had this premonition. It wasn't a dream. It was just I saw all these riots." And she lived, because my neighbors are from Los Angeles. And when Brooke moved there, I asked them about this address, and she said, Laura and Neil both said, "That's not a good part of town. It's pretty rough." And so I called Brooke and told her. Next time I heard from her, she was at her daddy's house in Ridgely, Tennessee. So she prepared me and I prepared her. I mean, she left everything she had, which is okay. Fine. God will provide. And now she's just bought her first little house. I'm so proud of her. She has a degree in theology, and she's a great artist. She painted a picture of Jesus' feet on the cross that just tore me to pieces. But there are times when a premonition or somebody's dream or something will say something to you, and you get prepared. You get prepared, or you keep doing what you're doing because you know it's the right thing to do. But then there are other times that you're oblivious to it. You're too busy taking care of the whole world, everything to do in the house and all kinds of stuff, that you don't pay attention. You're running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and you don't hear those little voices that tell you, you don't need to go there. Not a good thing. And you just have to slow down so that you can, be still. That cup I've got, be still. You can hear. When you get rid of the clutter around you, you can hear. Well, when I got my little Subaru a long time ago, little red Subaru, went to a festival in Asheville, was meeting Justin and Emily. I don't even think they had children at the time. But I locked my keys in the car. Really, I locked my keys in the car. I didn't even have a cell phone. And I think Justin ended up calling a locksmith and they got the car open. But that incident taught me to put a spare key in a little magnetic box and hide it up on top of the bumper, just where I knew it would be. Now bumpers aren't metal anymore. I don't know how you do that, but there's got to be a way. But I never locked myself back in that car again. Now I have a rule. I have my keys on a lanyard, I get out of the car. I put the lanyard around my neck before I get out of the car. And then I lock the car with the lock on the door, with holding the keys in this hand. So I know that I can get back in the car because I have the keys on me, right on me. Well, my next car, we bought at some auction. It was a Nissan Pathfinder. And, or maybe that was the car before this, I don't remember. But I was taking a kid, it's probably the car before the Subaru. I took a kid and his uncle fly fishing to my favorite spot in the forest on Daniel Ridge Loop. And I had the car kind of parked on a little hill, kind of out of the way, and gravity took the door and slammed the door before I got my keys, because I was getting fly rods out of the back seat, out of the trunk, and the trunk was closed, and I guess the closing of the trunk slammed shut and shut the door, and I didn't have my keys out. That's why I have a rule. I put my keys on before I get out of the car. Here we were, locked out of the Pathfinder, and it's coming a thunderstorm. Really and truly, it's coming a major thunderstorm, lightning like crazy. Luckily, we were at a place where there was a bridge and you could get under the bridge. But I still had to get in the car. For us to get home. And so the rain calmed down, the lightning calmed down, and I was able, I didn't have any tools with me like that in my fly vest. I didn't have anything that would knock out a window of my car for me to be able to get in the car. So there was a campsite there that I'd camped in many times, and I went to that campsite, and I got a stick and I started digging around I could have got a rock or something, but I dug around in the fire pit and there was a hatchet head. Just the right thing, because the little Nissan Pathfinder had little tiny windows, little triangular windows on the back window. And so I knocked out that window. I was able to unlock the door, and we were able to get out of the rain into the car. Made for a rough fishing trip. I don't think we got to fish at all. And by that time, the police had stopped by trying to help us and checking on us, making sure we're okay, Mr. Holden, Deputy Holden. But God provided that time. God provided. We were safe, and He provided a hatchet to break the window. I could have done it with a rock, but the hatchet had a point that was just in the car now. You know what I keep in my car? I keep a thing that'll break the window. I have one on my keychain if I needed it. A little orange thing, you push it up against the window and it goes pop, and it breaks the window. Why do I keep that? Because I've locked myself out of the car before. The news media keeps telling us that things are going to get bad. They're going to get awful. The economy's going to heck in a handbasket. It's all gloom and doom. But you know what? Read your Bible. Go back into Genesis and read about Joseph and his coat of many colors, and how jealous his brothers were, and how they threw him in a pit and took the coat home, saying some wild animal had killed their baby brother. And read this book, read these verses. Read it. And then Joseph got rescued from the pit. His brother sold him into slavery with this caravan going to Egypt. And he was sold into slavery in Egypt into the house of Potiphar. And Potiphar's wife was smitten with him and tried to trick him into bad things, but he was strong. But she still bore false witness against him, and he was thrown in prison. And in prison, he interpreted dreams. From some of the prisoners and some of the guards. And all of us, one day, Pharaoh had a dream and he didn't know what it was. None of his people knew what it was. And so Joseph, somebody told him that there's this guy in prison and he knows how to interpret dreams. So Joseph told him what the dream represented. It was 7 years of plenty. And then there were going to be 7 years of famine. And that because Joseph interpreted that dream, Pharaoh made him like second in command in the whole land of Egypt. Second, or maybe third. I don't know which it was. I'd have to reread it to get it all. He built grain towers to save the grain. It was fertile ground. They planted more than they'd ever planted, and they stored the grain and just kept having to build more storehouses. And then the lands around them were in famine after 7 years. They were starving. And so Joseph's brothers asked their dad if they could go to Egypt to try to buy some grain so that they wouldn't starve to death. They get to Egypt, they don't even recognize their own brother that they've sold into slavery. Don't even recognize him. But Joseph recognizes his brothers. And he commanded the people to fill their sacks with grain and to put their money back in the sack. And then when they got back to where their father was, they opened up the grain in the sacks and saw that their money was there. And they were frightened that they were going to get accused of stealing. So one of the brothers went back with the money to give it back because it had to be a mistake. And finally Joseph said, "It was not a mistake. Is your father still alive?" So a dream of somebody Joseph interpreted, which brought his family, ended up moving to Egypt. And after 400 years, they were slaves in a country. They numbered more than the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were scared of them. So they kept them pushed down, locked down. But that dream prepared Egypt for famine. That dream protected people. So when you have a dream and you don't know what it is, write it down. I mean, I'm listening to people on YouTube talking about having dreams and how they can't talk to anybody. I keep a notepad in my bathroom and I write things down. What I wake up thinking about, what song I hear in my head when I wake up. Write it down because you'll lose it. It's ephemeral. The minute you speak, you lose it. So keep a dream journal. You'd be surprised what the Lord's revealing to you. You just have to open up your heart. Just have to open up your heart and be willing to hear what God's saying to you, whether it's in a dream or a premonition or a vision. Or, I mean, I've been driving down the road and I'd say to Robert, honey, there's going to be a deer up here. He doesn't say, you're nuts. He slows down. One time we were in South Carolina somewhere, maybe eastern North Carolina, and I had a vision of a snake on the road, on my side of the road, and not a mile down the road. I told Robert, there's going to be a snake up here. And he slowed down. And sure enough, there was a big black snake. I've had premonitions driving to the airport in a fog that I needed to get over into the left-hand lane because there were going to be, this is crazy, 3 deer standing in the road. 3. And sure enough, as soon as I got moved over, there were 3 deer. I couldn't see 10 feet in front of my face, but there were 3 deer. God let me see ahead of me and prepared me. So step out in faith. And when you do have a problem, when you have a mistake like lock keys in the car, do something about it where you never get locked in your car again, locked out of your car. Because it costs you more to hire, even if it's a key fob that opens your car. They're $400 at a dealer. I know, because I just had to buy one for Ben's car. And I thought he had 2, but evidently one of them came up missing. The story of Joseph is in Genesis. And it continues into Exodus. You know, we're coming up on Passover and Easter. They're all connected. Well, folks, take heed of your dreams. Don't be afraid of them. It's just God's way of helping you, giving you peace. One man I was listening to, he was talking about a dream he had when he was really sick. And he saw himself recovered and well, and he hung on to that because it was a powerful dream to him. It's amazing if you'll just slow down, get rid of your clutter. You're going to be able to hear what God wants you to know. But you got to slow down. And sometimes you might be hearing God's voice, but there's a mimicker out there that you'll think might be God's voice, but it's not. I've heard that voice too. And it gives me cold chills to think about it. But that's another story. So be thankful for those little gifts you've been given. Be thankful. Don't poo-poo them. Don't poo-poo them, because they're in the Bible. Even Jesus had a premonition, and Jesus knows all. He had a premonition that Peter was going to deny him 3 times. And Peter said, "No, Lord, I wouldn't do that." And sure enough, he did. And after he realized what he had just done, and that Jesus had told him he was going to do it. So y'all, take some time to sit quietly and finish up your tea. Write down the dreams you have. Keep a journal by your bed or in your bathroom. Do it. You'll love it. I love you all. And I will see you in the morning at 11 o'clock. Bye.